Can start already?
All right.
Okay, so I want to welcome everybody for joining us in this special session today. And I want to thank Emmanuelle for giving us the great honor of being with us and giving this lovely talk. And, we'll be having a little conversation on some of the things that she does and some of the cliches that she will be breaking. And but firstly and foremostly, I want to tell you a little bit about Emmanuelle. For those of you who don't know her, Emmanuelle Iger is an experienced speaker, author, and teacher in the field of tarot. She discovered tarot by chance while researching the use of symbolism in the unconscious and in therapeutic settings. Fascinated by its potential as a tool for self-discovery and creative expression, she has been sharing her knowledge through writing, teaching, and workshop facilitation in Paris for the past 10 years. Emmanuelle is dedicated to demystifying and demythologizing tarot to help others understand and utilize its potential outside of any belief system. Her presentations are focused on delivering a practical and grounded understanding of the subject matter. So, Emmanuelle, we would love to welcome you again and talk about synchronicities and meaningful coincidences. So you came across tarot by coincidence. You were looking for something and then you ended up somewhere else.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was a surprise, and I had a lot of fun, and I'm still having fun every day with this lovely game. So yeah, and synchronicities are a very interesting subject, and we shouldn't use this word for any coincidence, because the definition of a synchronicity is something that comes crashing down in your life and changes everything. So I had one, and it was this one.
Well, that is lovely. And I love how you say the game. So for you, tarot is a game. And let's start by talking about how you break the tarot cliche.
The thing that annoys me the most, I think, about tarot is how it's stuck with this image of something really occult, something really scary. Like when you see in horror movies, you always get the lady who draws the death card and then someone dies and then everybody is scared. And everyone thinks that if you are into stuff like tarot, you are going to hex their dog and their cat. So this is annoying to me. And a very difficult thing about this kind of topic is that immediately people feel like they have to separate between those who do believe and those who do not believe. So it's either you're a believer or you're a non-believer. And when we talk about believing into the power of tarot, about divining the future and stuff, if you don't believe this kind of thing, you think that it's stupid and it's a waste of time and you don't want to think more about it because it's just stupid. And if you do believe in those things, you feel like those who don't, they don't respect you or they are not open, and then you don't want to talk with them. So if we think of tarot from the perspective of belief, then every discussion stops. Either you think like I do, and it's cool, we are going to be friends. Either you don't think like I do and we're not going to be friends. And I don't think that this kind of closed-minded discussions bring anything to the table. So my thing is more to speak about tarot outside of any belief system. So tonight I will not talk about magic, about anything paranormal at all, because it just so happens that it's not my way of thinking, so it doesn't speak to me. I'm very pragmatic, so I only believe what I see, and I have seen lots of cool stuff, but I cannot think the things I've seen in a different way than worldly. So I'm going to present to you my belief, which is that you do not need to start with a belief to play with tarot. And I think the less we believe in it, actually, the more interesting it gets. Because if you believe in the cards, then you can think, okay, the cards are going to tell me my future, and then this is what is going to happen. And if you got bad cards, then it's a bad thing, and there is nothing you can do about it. But if you don't, and still you accept to play the game, then we can find many, many very interesting surprises. And this is what I like. This is those little insights that you will get during the game, during the reading, whatever. And it's, if you don't believe in it, it's okay. You can have it just like a suspension of disbelief during the reading. It's okay. The interesting thing is not the cards. It's not whether there are magic or not, because I think this is either not interesting or stopping discussions. But the interesting thing is what you will do with the cards as a person. So that's what I like to focus on.
So it's not a matter of belief. It's not a matter of what you believe or whether you believe in it. I mean, it's not a belief system. You do not take the tarot cards as a belief system. You take them as approachable, whatever belief system you come from.
Yes, because often you hear, yes, you cannot read tarot if you don't have a grandmother who is a gypsy or something, which is like the weird and racist cliche that we've had since the 19th century. Or, oh, she can read tarot, so she must have the sight or something. This is not true, because if you say only those with certain powers or certain genes or something are allowed to use the cards, first, that's really elitist and that's really weird. And second, we will see tonight some example with the cards, and it's really, really easy to tell stories with them. It's just images. And when you put some images together, when you put images in front of the kid will tell a story. So it doesn't mean that the kid is a weird, super powered freak. It just means that the kid is looking for meaning and finding it. And this is what we do with tarot. So it's open to anyone, everyone, also because everyone has a right to use any tool to think about themselves, because it's so easy and interesting and surprising to use these images to try to learn more about ourselves. And if learning more about oneself was reserved to a certain category of population, that would make me very angry.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important the way you put it, to eliminate the elitism that is tied to it sometimes, and to show how it is for everyone, and children, adults, everybody. So this is the archetypal aspect of the images there, because they are inherent and they are universal and they are found in everyone. And those, it shows in our responses to these cards, which might be different from person to person, but they are definitely, they can definitely be used by everyone.
Yeah, and I would like to add something about, because you talk about the archetypes, which is the big Jungian concept that we are going to love tonight. And I'd like to add a bit about how tarot has come to be mixed with this notion of archetypes, because it helps me break the cliche also around it. Because when we think about tarot, we think about this weird universal game that will resonate with our psyche and conscious and stuff. So it sounds really, really cool, right? And everyone's like, yeah, who invented this wonderful thing? Maybe someone very great, adorned with great wisdom in very immemorial times. Which is a total lie, because when you check history books, they say the history of playing cards globally and the history of tarot specifically are very clear, very easy. There is no mystery at all. And this is a game. This is a playing card deck. And it was invented in the Renaissance. The first ones we have are from the 15th century. It's an Italian game. And it's a trick-taking game. So just you play with your friends when you drink, and sometimes you play for money. And the bigger cards win the smaller cards. And I have a good friend who is a historian, and once she called me and she told me, yeah, I found the original rules of the game. I found the real one. So so I jumped in the subway and I came to see her, and there she had the text. And so we applied the rule and we played a bit. We played the original game of tarot together, and it was super boring because it's not a really good game. It's not that fun. It's a very simple game. I don't know how it could be called in English, but it's just regular. And why we have those weird images on the deck, it's also not a mystery at all. It's because they wanted to make like a list of important things, because it was easier to have cards that were easy to identify when you play fast with your friends. So it's better to have a big picture, like the sun, you can see it's a sun and it's not a dog, so it's easy. And they just thought that they would have the easier things to identify. So they would take the most important things. And the important things that they chose were the easiest one. Like, for instance, the sun, it's something in the sky when it's daytime. And there you've got the moon, and the moon is something in the sky during night. And this is death, and this is something that happens. This is the devil, and the devil is bad because we are in a Christian system. And this is the Pope, and the Pope is the chief of church. So it's important to know who he is, and so on and so on. So it's just a list of important things. And first, it was absolutely nothing else. But as they were important things, as time passed, they began to be seen as not images, not just representations, but symbols, which is very, very different. Because when you say, here is the sun, if it's not a symbol, if it's an image, it's an image of the sun. So the sun is warm, and that's great. It gives up light. But if you think of it as a symbol, you didn't change the card at all. Nothing's changed, everything's the same. But if you think of it as a symbol, then it can give you many, many other ideas that relate in your mind to the sun. For instance, the sun, it's warm. So it can be happiness. It can be playing together in the sun. It can be being friends. It can be so many things. Whereas the moon is not daylight, it's nighttime. So it's dark. So maybe it's scary. So there is fear and emotions in this card. So you see, we went from just an image of something to a symbol. And as it was a symbol of something very universal and important, then we can talk about archetypes. But this was not the original aim. It's an accident.
That's lovely. So it's kind of like you freed the archetypes in those images when you stick to the rules of the game.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I love how you speak about symbols versus representation, because, you know, one is a fixed meaning and the other one is all the possibilities that could ever be out there.
Yeah, anything that you can relate it to. This is why you cannot say that the cards have only one meaning and that there will be the true meaning that would have been decided by the masters who would have made the tarot, because there were no master. And the interesting thing about a symbol is that you can interpret it. Sorry about the accent. I've learned English in books and I'm doing my best here.
You're doing great.
Sorry. And when you interpret a symbol, you are going to look into yourself to find which image, which idea, which feeling it evokes in you. So it can be very personal. And I'm talking about symbols. So I'm not talking about the game anymore. I'm not talking about the card playing game. But this card playing game, as it was very boring in the 19th century, we kind of stopped playing it that way. It evolved, and the game of tarot now is different. But the tarot decks started to be seen as something mysterious and weird because, as I said, it's from the Renaissance. And in the 19th century, it already looked very old. And whatever's old is mysterious, right? And whatever's mysterious for someone from the 19th century is Egyptian. because it was like fashionable at the time to say Egypt is something ancient and mysterious and we don't know much about it. So any ancient and mysterious thing might be Egyptian. So that's why we have this legend that the ancient masters of tarot may have been Egyptian, which is a very big lie because in ancient Egypt, you had no Christian pope, but still it was cool to say that it was Egyptian. So Egyptian it was. And from this moment, people started to use the cards as a means of reflection. So Freemasons, for instance, they would use these cards and say, okay, this is a symbol. So what can I draw from this symbol? And that was already very interesting because when you do research a symbol, first you can learn many interesting things. So you get cultured, so that's cool. And also you can be very attentive to what resonates with you. So the first who really started to use tarot as a reflection tool were the Freemasons. And later, tarot got a bit more popular. And during the 17th, the New Age movement in the United States, it started to be really spiritual. So it started to be really linked to the idea of divination, of higher powers and stuff like that. But now I think it's starting to change again. And we've seen a massive traction to the idea that we can use tarot without any spiritual belief, without being from a particular obedience or religion or something, and just to use it to understand what's going on right now in the present. So you don't need to believe that the cards can tell you stuff about the future, but you can see that if you ask questions about important stuff, they will answer about your present. And I think that's very important because if you don't understand where you are at right now, it's going to be difficult to build yourself the future you like.
Well, that is fascinating because, again, it shows when you take it as a symbol, how you are actually not just liberating the image, but you are liberating the process, your own process of self-development, evolution, anything that has to do with the progress of the self later on. So, I mean, I'm not just for the fly on the wall, but, if you use it for divination, you are kind of giving it a fixed spot, you're giving it an aspect of determinism. Is that what you mean? Whereas if you look at it as a symbol, you might see it differently every time you look at it.
Yes, very much. Very much. And the question of divination is complicated because it's not always just you are going to meet a tall, dark stranger and stuff. You can have good divination who, in my opinion, will pretend to tell your future. Very good divination. But under this pretense, it will help you understand your present and what you can do about it. I think good divination works that way. But as I am not a diviner, I will stop there with my stupid opinion. I don't know anything about that. But I think that when we do a tarot reading, we are prompted to put words onto what we want to the future, which is not an easy thing to do. And I think that the cards will help us tremendously doing this because they will surprise us, and they will help us understand where we're at, and they will help us see it in another way.
Oh, that's fascinating. And do they help us make decisions in a way?
Yeah, they do. Well, and good ones, because and to answer that, I'd like to delve a bit deeper, if it's okay for you, into how I do believe that tarot cards work, actually, because I would like to show, imagine it's like a clock. I would like to open it and show you every wheel and stuff inside. Okay, so we really don't need to believe anything. So we really can grasp everything for ourselves. And I think that first and foremost, it's a storytelling machine, which is why it's interesting for creation also. But first, it tells stories, because when you put images together, it's really easy to make up a story. And when you look at what a tarot reading is, at the core of it, it's always a story, with a beginning, with an end, and with a logical conclusion. And why is it interesting to read stories? It's because first, the human brain only works on stories. There is only stories, because reality is very complicated. There is so much data available that our brain cannot cope with all the data. So what we will do, we're going to use two ways of surviving in this complex environment. First, we are going to use stories, which is, I have all this data. I will use the easiest hypothesis to link all the data together. So I will tell a story. For instance, I can see my colleague who is doing such and such thing, and it's annoying, and maybe she has her reasons, but as I'm annoyed, I will tell myself a story like, she's trying to annoy me because she's jealous of me, because she's bad and I'm good. Okay, so that's a story. And we keep telling ourselves stories. We love stories. So this is the reason why we keep reading novels and watching movies and TV shows and playing RPG games, whatever. Anything that has a story in it, we love it. When you want to sell something, you have to tell a personal story. When you give a talk, you have to give examples, because the brain only understands story. The rest is too hard. Okay? So we have the stories about the things we see, and also we have the stories about ourselves, because we have a complex life. And when we try to think about ourselves, we have to have a story. So I am the person who did this. I am a survivor, or I am a stupid person, and I'm always unlucky. So those are stories. And each one of the stories that we tell ourselves are fictions. Each one of them. And I think that if there is one thing to understand in this life, it's this, because things are too complicated. You cannot tell your whole story. You are going to have to select the events that will fit your hypothesis that you are the one who blah, blah, blah. Anything that will fit your current story. And the proof that it's a fiction is that you can change your story. For instance, the story you're telling yourself of your life right now, maybe it won't be the same in 10 years. And I think it was not the same 10 years ago. And sometimes we have bad stories in our heads, because I think you've noticed that the little voice in our head is not really objective. So sometimes you have people who have very grandiose voices and think that they are better than anyone. And most often you'll have people who have mean voices in their heads. And you know that, for instance, if bad parents will humiliate their kid enough, the kid will grow up believing that he's worthless or something. And then as the kid becomes an adult, this person will like continue telling themselves this story that they are worthless. And when you listen to this person talk, you will hear that she is making something up. For instance, you understand, I cannot be in a good relationship because I'm not worth it. I don't deserve it. Why would someone good want to listen to me, and blah blah blah. I will never. And you know that when you hear someone talking like that, you know that it's a fiction. For instance, someone who is in a bad relationship, she will maybe think that she is weak because she is cherry picking in her head all the events that fit this hypothesis. For instance, yeah, I'm weak because I can't leave him. I'm weak because I didn't answer him last time he insulted me, and so on. And you see that this is cherry picking, because the person who tells the story of herself as being weak is forgetting that she has been, for instance, protecting her child, and she has been fooling her boss and colleagues into thinking everything was all right, and she has been doing so many things that prove that she is a survivor, right? And yes, and this is, thank you from Heinz, thank you very much. And this is the core principle of narrative therapy. Thank you so much for that. Because narrative therapy is a mental health technique that is used for helping people regain control of their narration, like helping them realize that things are not just happening to them, that they can do things. Help them realize that they are not the problem, that they can decide for outcomes for them. So the goal of narrative therapy is to help a person first realize that the story she's telling herself is a story, and that other stories are possible, and then to help her select the story that will help her most. So that's a therapeutic thing. And tarot is not therapy. I want to be very clear about that, because therapy is doing the work, and tarot helps you understand what work is to be done. That's not the same thing, but still it shares the same goal, I think, as narrative therapy, in that you pull the cards at random. And this is the really funny trick about tarot, is that you ask it to represent your story with images, and you are not allowed to choose the images yourself, which is really fun, because if you did choose them for yourself, you would say, yeah, I want to tell my story with the cards, so I don't like this one. This one is good. Well, I'm gonna take this one. And if you did that, you put your story on the table, it's just the way you thought it was, you learn nothing, it's not interesting, so let's not do that. The fun thing about tarot is that you will draw the cards at random. So nothing magic in there, you're just playing a game. You're just saying that the cards are going to speak about your experience. And there is one rule about tarot that you have to follow for it to work. It's to pretend, at least during the reading, pretend that it's true. Pretend that the cards say the truth, but pretend. You can believe it if you like, it's all the same to me. But if you tell your stories with cards that you did not choose, and the cards say the truth, then it has absolutely no chance to say the same thing that you were already thinking, because you did not choose the card. So it has 100% chance of surprising you. And you pretend the cards are true. So you will get this weird card, and you'll be like, yeah, but if it's true, how can I explain it to be true? How can I make sense of it? For instance, imagine that I'm angry with my friend because I'm right and he's wrong. And I can't understand why he doesn't agree with me, why he insists on being wrong when I only want what's good for him. So I don't understand. So it's too much for me. So I use my tarot. I'm going to say, okay, so that's weird. I'm going to draw a card for me and a card for him, and I am going to understand how he can be so stupid, okay? And we can imagine that I draw the Emperor, which is this guy there. And you can see that he's not that cool, is he? Yeah. And the hidden truth is there. And it's going to like hit me in the face like a ton of brick. If I am the Emperor, it will mean that I am rigid. I am the one who wants the others to yield and to do what I say. And I don't listen to anyone else. Whereas if my friend is a nice card like Two of Cups or something, then it will tell me, wow, actually, this one is listening to the other person. This one is doing an exchange. This one is loving. He's really nice. He's not like this bad guy there. And so the story told like those two cards is very different, because it says, yeah, you're the one not listening to him. He's not that stupid and he's listening to you, but it doesn't help because you don't listen. And if I get these cards who do not fit with the story I was telling myself, then my story crumbles. Because as I told you before, when we tell ourselves a narrative, a story, we cherry pick the events that fit the story. Here, I have another story that doesn't work. So it will remind me of all the events that I had forgotten. Like, for instance, when we talked, I'm going to go back to that. This is a great question. Yeah. When we talked with my friend, for instance, sometimes I could have been talking over him. And I didn't remember that because it didn't make sense in my story. But now in this story, it does. So now I remember. So now I see the thing very differently. And I would like to say something about the question that was just said, if it's okay. You said, can we cherry pick what the cards say? I think you found the core of the question. All of the cards, they are relatively precise. So with the Emperor, you cannot say, oh, this is really cool, he's really chill, he's really, really loving and welcoming. It doesn't fit with the picture. And yet, as it's a symbol, like Rula was saying before, you can find in it what will resonate with you. So me, in my stupid example, what resonated was, oh, this guy is really rigid. So I cherry picked in all the different possibilities of the symbol. I cherry picked what struck me in my situation. So I think that cherry picking is there. You have one symbol that is precise, that is nothing else than authority, rigidity, rules, the law or something. It's not love, it's not freedom, it's not anything else. But you have enough space in that symbol to pick what's important for you. For instance, a boss, a father, in my situation, it wouldn't have made sense at all. So I wouldn't have understood the card. So I pick what resonates with me, and what resonates with me does not always fit my story. So that's how I think it works. Sorry, I've been, yes, and we can find context from meaning, of course. Yeah.
Okay, I see a question here, or is that a comment by Mary? I have found that people derive meaning from context, but we can also find context from meaning. There's a fluid relationship between the two.
Yeah, I think I think this can lead also to a very important mechanic of the tarot reading per se. If it's all right, do you want me to expand a bit on this?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. We have cards that have meanings, but For instance, when you want to learn tarot, the first thing you will find a book and hope that it's a good book and try to memorize the meaning in the cards. And it never works for two reasons. First, all the books give you different answers. So that's very, very frustrating for beginners. And it's for a very good reason. And I will expand onto it later if you like. But the second thing is that you don't have context, because the book couldn't predict that you would draw a card in such and such position following such and such question in your life, which is a very, very different life from the author's life. So the work that you have to do is take the card, see what kind of symbol it is. So the emperor was rule, authority, law, and so on. And then interpret it, which means find the meaning of this in the context of your situation. So that's why before I said, yeah, this means I am rigid, because it made sense in my situation and it struck. In another situation, for instance, I've seen this card pulled to represent someone's problem. And I told her, this is a problem for you. So the emperor is authority, the rules, saying things like, it will be my way, and it's like this and nothing else. So what do you think about it? And the person told me, oh yeah, that's my mom. Because my mom always tells me you're going to do things this way and not any way, anything else. And this is really a problem for me because I don't feel free at all, and I can't breathe, and it's a problem. So you see, in this context, it was her mom. It was not her being rigid or something. So you have one symbol, and you can pick what's true for you, which is the reason why when you've had a reading with random cards drawn to represent your life in a random way, the first thing you think is, I'm not going to understand that because it makes no sense. The last thing you think after you have done all this work of interpreting the cards is, oh my God, this is so true. And I think this is a very interesting point, because every time you do a good reading, at the end of the reading, it's absolutely obvious that it should have been those cards, that you drew the right cards. And it's very striking, very, very striking. And this is the point where you can tell yourself, yeah, this is definitely magic, because it's so spectacular, right? But I want to stress that if the cards look so true at the end, it's because you have done the work of making them true. Because, for instance, the one who told me that's my mom, she's bossing me around. This person was making the card true. If I had told her, this is your boss and your boss is a bad person, she would have said, I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense. But she said, in my life, the emperor is my mom. And yes, there must be situations where the emperor can point to something missing in your life. Yes. And because in the example I was giving, it had been drawn as a problem. But if you draw it as advice, it can be a really good advice. Like you could be more structured, you can have more discipline, it can be very useful. Yeah, thank you, Cassie.
So Emmanuelle, I mean, can we say that you can never really draw the wrong card?
Yes, I do.
Would always have something to say.
Yes, because that's the rule number one of the game. The rule is that if you draw a card, any card, assume that it's here for a reason. So either you are spiritual and you think that it's really there for a reason, and it's okay. Either you are not, and you just suspend your disbelief for a moment and you just assume it's here for a reason because you pretend it is. It's all the same. So whether you are spiritual or not, it's the same. So there is not one who is better than the other. I'd rather talk in a non-spiritual way, but both work in the same way. It's just the same way of saying the same things with different words. And you cannot draw the wrong card, because when you draw a card that first seems not to make sense at all, you will apply the rule and you will say, how can I explain that it was drawn from me? What can be the reason? And when you ask yourself this question, you start thinking, and you stop thinking, and you think. And when you are thinking, you are searching for all the events in your life that would pertain to this card, this wrong card, and who don't fit your story. And you will find one, because your life is very complex and your story is very fictitious. And so there is 100% chance that after sometimes an hour or two, depends, you will end up with something that will tell you, oh yeah, now I understand. And now that I have seen this card, I understand that I am now unable to think of my story in the same way again. This card is so true. I do really think that that's the trick about tarot. And as it, yeah.
there's like an acausality, this acausal relationship with you and the card that you pick, and this random correctness of whatever card you pick is saying, so whatever you pick, it's true, or it's right, let's say, in order not to use the word truth. And it's just so random, but it is so right. That's amazing.
Yeah, and you know what's the opposite of random? It's mechanism. It's being a robot. Because, for instance, if I'm still working with my story idea, if I always see my life in the same way, and I am into the habit of doing the same things over and over again, this habit becomes more and more ingrained. And if the story I'm telling myself is a hurtful story, then it's going to be very bad for me, because it's going to be very hard to break out from it from the inside. So I need something surprising. And Raymond was saying before, tarot is the instantaneous recognition of a hidden truth. When you've got this surprising card, you recognize instantly that you were telling yourself a story, the card is telling another story, so another story is possible. So you do not have to keep doing the same mechanistic thing over and over again. You are free to choose whether you will change your story or not. And this is a very important thing, because if you don't realize that you can be free, you're not free. If you realize that, like the person was saying about the narrative therapy stuff before, if you realize that you can choose your own story, then you can do anything.
Mary, like burrows and cut up writing from random correctly cut up text. Also thinking of Union Ballas and his idea of the unknown. I don't know why it stopped here.
I don't know about that.
No. Yeah, the unknown known. It's a really good way of putting it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because about this unknown, maybe we can say it that way. In our heart of hearts, or whatever you want, we know what we want. We know who we are, but it's very, very extremely hard to access that, because we have all the stories and beliefs and everything that has been imposed on us. For instance, a good girl doesn't want such things, for instance. This can be a belief. And all of these influences prevent us from thinking or saying the things that we have learned should stay unsaid. But tarot is random, so it doesn't care about our beliefs. It doesn't care about whatever would be forbidden for us. So the card will shatter our fictional story, and it will shatter our mask also. The mask being what we are telling ourselves that we are. For instance, I happened to come across a very interesting example. So it was a very nice girl. She didn't want to ask her question, and she was so very nice. She was like perfect. She was so nice. So she was, oh, you wanted to kiss her. She was such a good girl, and she didn't want to ask her question, but she wanted cards. She wanted her cards drawn, and she insisted on it. And she drew horrible cards, very scary cards. Do I have a scary card for you to see? Scary card. You see, and she drew. So I remember another terrible one. It was the worst, really scary card, and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, she's going to be sad. It's not good. And the girl looked at me and had a bright smile on her face. And she said, yeah, you understand, my boyfriend is doing this and this and this, and it was really bad. But when she saw the cards were bad. I think her core belief was that a good girl is nice and nice girls don't complain. So that's why she didn't want to ask her question. She didn't want to say the things, but the cards said the things. So it wasn't said by her. It was seen to have been said by the cards. So it was okay. She didn't have to feel guilty for the problem to have been said, because it wasn't her fault. She didn't choose the cards. And when the cards had spoken, she was able to say everything that she had on her heart, and she was able to talk about it, and we were able to have a real discussion where she said what she wanted. And then she said, yeah, what he's doing is not what I want, so I'm going to leave. But she couldn't have left if there hadn't had been a complaint, and she couldn't have complained if she hadn't used the cards to complain for her. So in her heart, she knew what was going to happen, but the cards like broke the forbidden thing. That was great.
Wow, so they played the role of facilitators in a way that kind of helped her to set free her emotions, talk about them, the expressive aspect that she was probably suppressing for a while.
Yeah, because it's a prompt. Every card shows you an idea. So every idea is different. We have 78. And as it's not a word, you can use the word that resonates with you to express this idea, but it will give you an idea. It will give you something to say. And sometimes this kind of things, it's very hard to find words for oneself. And then the card will just give you one and see how you work with it. And now you've got words to express yourself. And now it's much easier to say, for instance, what you want or what you need when you have words to say it. It's just, a facilitator or a prompt. I think it's a prompt machine. A prompt machine gives you stories and you do what you like with them.
Well, and speaking of prompts, we did post on Instagram, and we circulated through email the pictures of the 2 tarot cards that you put up there as prompts for writing poems.
And it was random.
I know many people who are here today, they already had their poems written. But I don't know, I'm pretty sure there are some that haven't written anything yet, or probably they did not see the cards on time. So do you mind giving a little few minutes exercise, maybe a 10 to 15-minute exercise, and let's see how the cards will speak to each one?
Okay.
So like a little writing exercise.
And
do you have
do we
the
need
picture
to...
with you?
I have the cards with me.
Okay, perfect. So, right.
So I don't know if everyone sees it properly. So I drew 2 cards. So this one and that one. And the idea is that we can use them as a creative prompt to say anything. We can use as many as we want. Thank you. We can say anything that feels like it fits with this position and this position. So anything that resonates with you. Is it okay?
All right, yes. So Vicky's asking what deck?
Yeah, this deck is the Marseille weight, which is my deck. I'm very happy with it, and it's published in France, but I think you can see it on Amazon and stuff like that. And Meredith asked how many cards. 10 of wands and 9 of coins. Meredith asks how many cards do you use for a reading, and shall I take a few minutes for that while the others are working on their prompts? Yeah, because I think it's a very interesting question. I won't take long because I don't have long, but I want to use this question to give you the trick to make your own readings, so you can do anything you like. When you do a reading, basically all you do is painting a picture of your situation on the table, right? And if you want to do that, the easiest thing to do is to do a mind map. You know about mind mapping, right? And if you look at any tarot spread, you will see that it works exactly in the same way. You have a question. Thank you for the picture. You have a situation, and thank you, great. With the situation, you have only one thing to do, is like to ask yourself, what are the important elements of the situation? So this was a bit abstract, so I'm going to give you an example. For instance, if you want to ask your tarot about a relationship, what's important in a relationship? The first person is important. The second person is important, because if you do the relationship reading without looking at one of the 2 partners, it's not going to work. So the 2 of them are important. But what is also important in a relationship? It's, for instance, maybe, I don't know, the needs of the 2 of them. So the first one needs something, the second one needs something. And what's also important in a relationship, I don't know, it may be communication. How do they communicate? And maybe they have a problem. So what would be their problem? So now I've said 6 things. And maybe an important thing for them would be to get advice, for instance. So that would be my 7th card. And now I've got a 7th card spread. You can use this way of doing it for anything. So how many cards will be drawn? It depends on how you have analyzed your question. I think it's the easiest way of doing of going for it. Sorry if I've been a bit long.
No, that's really fascinating. I think Rula had to step away for a second.
Is it possible for you just to give those 7 things again for the 7 card spread, like what the positions would mean?
Oh, it was just an example, but if you like, I can say it again, but you can modify it however you want, right? So the easiest thing I would do would be first person and second person. And if you see that if if they are in a throuple or something, you just change and add other cards. But first one and second one, it's interesting to know what the first one needs and what the second one needs. And so you see whether those two cards go well together or not. It can be really fun. You can ask about, I'm going to change it a bit, but you can ask about the strengths and weaknesses of the relationship. So you can see what they can work on. You can see what's already working for them, but you can see the problem. And then you can add advice for them, and it will be a nice way of wrapping it up. And I think it's an easy spread, and it works well every time. I don't know what you think, but you can change it.
Yeah, thank you for going back over that. I see somebody asked to see if you could show your deck again.
Yeah, it's thank you, Isabel and Anthony.
This one.
Yeah, it's thank you. Very happy with it because it's made with real medieval illumination, because we've been through lots of old images and we made a tarot deck from them.
Yeah, it's a beautiful deck.
Thank you.
I wonder, a lot of what you're talking about is so fascinating. It makes me think of working with dream images. You know, when you wake up in the morning and you have these images that you're just sort of set with, and now you have to figure out what to do with them or how they fit into your life. It feels the same in a way as pulling the cards.
Yes, because you've got these images and you have to interpret them. So you have to find a way to make them fit in your life.
Yeah. I would wonder, so if you didn't have the inclination or the understanding to do a whole spread, just pulling one card, is that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and lots of people do that. For instance, to get familiar with the new deck, you can do this. You can just draw one card, for instance, in the morning, and then at the end of the day, you reflect on what you experience, and you try to find what in your day was like this card. And it's a great exercise because you learn the card, but we don't really care about the card. You reflect on your day instead of just going to sleep and starting another day and doing it routinely. So it's a way of being more conscious of what you are living, which is useful, I think.
I wonder if it would be a good way to do writing prompts too.
Oh yeah. I think it's really fun to make up characters, for instance, because it's a narrative tool. It tells story, and there are many creators who craft stories. And for instance, the relationship spread I talked about earlier, or any spread that would focus on you and that would help you understand yourself better. If you do it not for you, but telling yourself that it's going to be a character, whatever, you can tell a character's story. And if you have like 6-7 cards like we had before, you can see the character taking flesh, like getting alive in front of your eyes, because you can say, this is a card to say what he's like. Okay, he's like this. This is a card to say what he does, but this is a card to say the reason behind what he does. And this is a card to say his background. Where does he come from? What's in his past? Now you have a reason for all that. And as you make up the story, the character feels more and more alive, because it's complex, because you've got dynamics. And people who write scenarios, usually they love using the tarot, because it makes in 5 minutes you get a character who's really alive. And that's really useful.
Yeah, that sounds like it's something that would be fun to try.
Oh yeah.
I see Rula's back, and I don't know if we've had enough time or if we want a little bit more for people to work on the prompts.
Let's see what we have. Is anyone ready to share their poem? You can use the raise hand button so we can make sure that we see you, because that would appear on the list, not just in the photos.
Yeah.
Anybody?
I have a way.
Not yet.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I have seen this too. I have a story in my head about those cards, but I want to see the diversity of stories.
Okay. Would you want to go first? Oh, we've got Cassie.
Yeah.
Cassie's ready.
Cool.
All right, Cassie, go ahead.
And unmute Cassie.
Thank you.
Great. Hi.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I'll just get on and read what I wrote then. It's not very long.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Here grounded and green lit, growing wings that prefer to stay tended, for onward, onward with whittled gardens. Stars on sticks root the spine in strength for one more, one more, one more. Blind and back broke, no more.
Wow, that was wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Wow, and you merge both of them together perfectly. Yeah.
Thank you, Cassie. Sorry, I have a bit of a cough that's been lingering for a while, so I've been muting and unmuting. Anybody else would like to go next? I guess maybe we could give a few more minutes, Emmanuelle, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It looks like we have a hand up, but not in the chat. Iwa?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Iwa, yes.
Sorry, I don't.
Hi, sorry.
There we go.
Technology. Hello. Hi. I'm Eva. And so it's short again. Carrying my burdens, I can't see past the weight. And the lady stays with our falcon, also blinded and hooded, dreaming of flight and prey.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that you guys can do better than us in French is the rhythm of the sentences. Really great. Thank you.
Very nice.
Both of you,
that was beautiful.
Yeah. But the blind thing is really great. Yeah, I'm really impressed. Sorry.
That's it. Anyone else? If not, we could take a few minutes and just, do we want to maybe take 5-minute quiet break, and if anyone needs to get up and walk around a bit, since we're at about the halfway point, if we want to come back at the 15.
And Veronique has a very interesting question also. So what should we do?
I think
she has a very good point.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's take it.
Do you want me to? So can you tell us about what you think about the concepts of bad cards or scary cards? We try to always correct our way to talk about them like they're neither negative or positive, but I'm wondering if it's a way of our time to try not to polarize.
And this is a very interesting insight also. Yeah. Yeah, well, I take a minute to say how I feel about that. We have a problem in tarot, is that the problem is that we do have super scary cards. So I'm looking for my scary card. There, scary. And we have other scary ones. We have dark ones. We have dead people all the way. We have shocking cards, like this one. I don't know if you see it well enough, but this one is known as the very uncomfortable one. Yeah. So as we have about 40% of the game that can be uncomfortable, we're going to have a problem. First, we have to have this kind of cards because sometimes in life things get uncomfortable and sometimes we get problems. And if we don't have any cards to talk about them, it's going to be hard to find a way to get out of the problems. But I think it's more useful to think about those cards as uncomfortable rather than bad. Because, for instance, death, as I shown you with the skeleton and stuff, it's scary. It's symbolically, we are used to saying that it's a moment where the old things die, so they are being swept away, and you get rid of anything obsolete to make way for the new things. So it's like you are throwing lots of things out of your house to make room for a new life. And it's very uncomfortable because you have a lot of work to do. But if it's to make way for something new, then it has a good reason and it gives you something useful. So it's not bad, it's not good either, because I'd rather not have to do it. It's uncomfortable, but it's useful. And I think every card is useful. And if we think of cards as either good or bad, it's going to be hard to make half of all the spread that we do. It's going to be hard to read them because as I was giving Raymond the example of the relationship reading before, you have places in your reading that will be positive. For instance, this is your strength. And you will have places that are more negative, like this is your weakness. If you have a good card on your strength, it's cool. And a bad card on your weakness, it's cool. But as you draw randomly, you will very, very often have a terrible card as your strength and a nice card as your weakness. And if you say it's a bad card, you just can't make sense of it. But if you say that it's an uncomfortable thing, then for instance, if death is my strength, it means I am good at making change. I am good at doing something else. It's a good thing. If my weakness is this really pretty lady who is really rich with her falcon in her garden, if that's my weakness, maybe my weakness is that I always stay in my comfort zone alone with no one to bother me, and that's maybe not the best thing. So I think good and bad is like blocking the interpretation. Is it okay with you, Veronique? Thank you very much. Time is something different. Wow. And we have a very nice one from Mary. Time is something different in card reading, more like time in a fairy tale, because things can take a blink of an eye or hundreds of years or lifetimes. Yeah, that's great. And an interesting thing is that the way of reading the tarot that I have been explaining tonight, it's using it as a tool for advice, a tool for understanding and for advice. And sometimes people will ask, yeah, but when will I meet this stranger, or when will things change or stuff? Well, if you got an advice from your reading, the when, it can be in the blink of an eye. If you apply the advice right now, it can be in hundreds of years if you apply the advice in hundreds of years. So, and it can feel like a joke, but it means to stress your personal freedom. You decide how long it will take. The cards do not decide for you, you do, because you are the one living your life. And this is an empowering tool. This is not a tool meant to have power over you. It's a tool meant to give you power. So of course, time is different because you do what you want with it.
Yeah. That's so important, I think, to take into consideration. Yeah. As well as this idea of to the previous question, that all the cards have both positive and negative.
Yeah. Depending
on the situation and how you can incorporate it into your lived experience. Really interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, that's true for astrology too, says Vicky. And yeah, yeah, you can use astrology exactly in the same way, exactly. And thank you, Susan. And Cassie says, how do you deal with reversals? And reversals she means like sometimes you use cards all in the same way. Sometimes you have reversed cards, so like half of them will be upside down. And what do you do when one card comes out of the deck upside down? When I see one, I say this doesn't work. Yeah. So you see this guy who is very passionate and very swift and blazing his way. When he's upside down, he just can't do it. He's just tired of, or it doesn't work because either he's too slow, or on the other way, he's going very, very fast in the wrong direction. So something doesn't work. So I read it like that, but I don't use this so often because I found that the right way up worked every time, so it's easier. So
Gottfried had his hand up. Yes, Gottfried.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a question. Hi. I have a question from a few minutes ago, or from a little while ago earlier. I very much liked when you gave yourself as an example, and you drew the emperor, and you immediately applied it to yourself, and you said, oh, maybe there is a part in me that is rigid and demanding, etc., etc. Then in the following example, with the woman who drew the I felt she was deflecting. She said, oh, that's my mother.
Oh, you felt she was deflecting.
But I mean, sorry, of course I wasn't in the situation as you were with that woman. But from a therapeutic perspective, I would have immediately thought, she's projecting a part of herself onto her mother, and immediately, no, that's nothing to do with me. That's my mother, my mother. Whereas actually, it could very well have been also a part of herself.
Yes. Yes. So I only gave 2 cards. So the example was truncated, but
of course.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. But thank you for that, because this also will be the difference between a tarot reader and a real mental health professional, which is not the same thing. And it's very important to acknowledge that, because you have techniques, you know what to do. In this kind of reading, we have many cards. So you will have like 7, 8 cards. And the aim of the game is to make up a story that is logical with all the cards. It's really, really hard. It must be logical, and it must reflect the experience of the client. Yeah. And in the eventuality that the person is deflecting, it's a mask. Exactly. It's not, yes. Yeah. If it's a mask, it can very well be this, like she said, oh, it's my mother, it's not me at all. And then we will realize that it doesn't fit with all the other cards. We cannot find a way to say the story.
I understand. Thank you. Yes.
And at some point, it will break.
Yes. So, but I mean, in a most positive sense, I'd like to say, in the way you so wonderfully explained it, the tarot reader in you is meeting the therapist in you in a really, really lovely way. Thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Blessings.
But we are not therapists because we don't do the work. We break masks. We lay traps for truth to come out. But after that, we don't really know what to do with the truth.
I have a little story that might reinforce everything you've been saying here. I give other readings to other people, but I'm no tarot wizard. So I use a 5-card spread with present expectations, unexpected, near future, and what will be. The woman came to me with the question about what to do with her mother. Her mother was seriously ill. As a matter of fact, it was a inexplicable medical problem because her brain registered no brain waves, yet she was alive. And that's not supposed to happen. At any rate, they were taking care of her at home, and she was a fellow teacher in school with me. So I said, well, let's do a reading and see what it says, because she was struggling. Should I put my mother in a facility, or should we continue to take care of her? So she picked the 5 cards and we laid them out and turned them over one at a time. And I didn't say anything. I just said, you tell me what you see in these cards. And we do that first. And then when she was done with that, I said, well, I'm going to tell you what this really good book I have will tell me about, about these cards. I didn't do any interpretation. I just read what the book said about the cards. She had this incredible release, and she immediately knew what she had to do. And the next day her mother went into a facility. And it was just like she saw what she probably knew inside of herself. But until she saw the cards, she could not make that extremely important decision. And that to me was just an instance of the power that they can have in your life. Reinforcing everything you've said about how individual the cards are for the person who's choosing them.
It's a catalyst. I think Rula was saying it before. It's like it breaks the way that the mind has of doubting and coming back on itself and doing it over and over again. Then there is something external, something that seems external because you are projecting your thing on the card, but something external is validating you. What was your book? Can you show it again?
Oh, yeah. Juliet Sharman Burke, The Complete Tarot.
This one has seen quite a lot of work, hasn't it?
This one has done quite a bit of work, yes.
Yeah. Wow, cool. Yeah. Thank you.
There are two other books, just to share what's been helpful for me. 78 Degrees of Wisdom, Rachel Pollack. And then, of course, for this group, Young and Tarot by Sally Nichols. 3 very helpful books. I just share.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing them, Ray. And I wonder, Ray, do you have any poems to share? Usually you do.
Usually I do. I guess I misunderstood the assignment. What I did was I took the 2 cards and I just kind of made 2 lists of what I saw with the 2 cards. I'd be glad to share that, but I don't have a poem. So
I'd be glad to hear it.
So I use the Rider-Waite deck. So the cards that I'm using are a little bit different. A little bit different, but pretty much the same. So
yeah.
So I said so I'll do 9 of Pentacles and then 10 of Wands. So I saw ease in the Pentacles and struggle in the Wands. The landscape is nearby in the Pentacles, far away in the Wands. I felt a sense of harvest in the Pentacles. It seems as if the grapes are ready to be picked, and almost like planting in the Wands, because there's a little buds coming off the top of the Wands. Pentacles, the 9, rest after tasks, whereas the 10 was certainly labor, many things to accomplish yet. The clothing was leisurely in the Pentacles and more of work clothing in the Wands. There's in the Rider-Waite deck, there's a little snail in the corner. Yeah, a little snail.
I have a snail too. I kept it.
Okay, good. So I felt like there was an unhurried pace. And then in the other card, he actually has 1 foot off the ground. So he's like on the way somewhere. The 9 was all curved lines with no separation between the self and the natural world, where in contrast to the Wands, where there are obviously the Wands are straight, but there's a straight line in the card.
Oh, yeah, you have a good eye.
Between this desert here and then nature out there. So it was almost like, strangely enough, 10 is supposed to come after 9, but the 9 seemed more like an end and the 10 seemed more like a beginning. But just things I tried to notice in looking at the two cards.
Yeah, and you noticed many details on which you added from which you extracted meaning. For instance, it's really true that the woman in the 9 of Coins really looks like she's part of the garden, whereas the guy is not part of anything else. I had never seen them like that, so thank you for that.
That's funny you said that, because at first I said, 9 is female and the 10 was male, but then after a while I wasn't so sure about 9 anymore.
Yeah, this is a trick of the Rider-Waite, I guess, because you have a few characters that are a little ambiguous or gender fluid or something, like the Hierophant, for instance, who really looks female but is not supposed to be. It's interesting.
I think what really got me with this contrast, that was great to put these 2 cards together, was that the 9, the woman is facing outward, and the 10 card, you're really imprisoned within some kind of inner turmoil. You know, you're not even, can hardly see in front of you.
Yeah.
So I always think of the tarot cards as if they're little mirrors that somehow are reflecting what's going on inside here that I just haven't been able to see, but wow, now I can see it.
Yeah, it's like they attack your blind spots directly, don't they?
Exactly, you know, and it's instantaneous, you know, you just know right away, oh goodness.
Yeah. And now I can't think of it in any other way. My mask is broken. My good friend Pierre asks for a teaser.
Yes, and we all want to know.
Yeah. So thank you for that.
Next release.
I'll be quick. I don't think it's going to be the next release because there is a lot of work to be done yet. But I have been restoring a very old tarot deck, which is really nice and good looking. Look, it's the Minchiate deck. It's a deck from 1763, and the cards are very old and stuff. So I've been using lots of magic to make them pretty again. And it's an interesting tarot deck because it has 97 cards. So 41 major arcanas, which is a hell of a lot. And the interesting thing about, so you can see Temperance, the regular one, the number has changed. And in this deck you have other virtues. So this is hope. We have faith and charity also. And here is faith. And here is charity. And we have the 4 elements, like for instance, here is fire. And we have the 12 zodiac signs, which is really cool. And I'm very, very, very excited. And I'm working with a historian, Isabelle Nadolny, to write a book about this one, about all the historical origins of all the representations on the cards. And we are so, so excited with all the weird and funny things we are unearthing. But it's still a long way from being published. So this is one Minchiate tarot. So so you can't buy it yet, but Minchiates are this kind of tarot decks with a lot of cards. You can find other ones online. Minchiate, it's a bad word in Italian.
Oh.
Means cocky or something like that.
Oh. Well, thanks for the info and thanks for this glimpse. I mean, that's just so exciting. And what kind of work are you doing on it? Are you researching it, or are you just
I'm doing the digital restoration of the cards, and I'm working with the historian for the historical part of the things, and I will be giving significations for the cards, because as there are a great many more cards than a regular deck, you have to like remake all the system. So it's going to be fun.
Yes, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear more about it once you're there.
Yeah,
and well, you mentioned digital restoration. So maybe we'll just pop in one more question in the meantime while the poets are writing or, getting more inspiration. AI, now, this big hype, the AI generated art and images and stuff. So how do you see that in comparison with the tarot images? Could they belong?
Could they belong? It's hard. Everyone tried to make tarot cards. It doesn't work. It does not work because they are wild. They do what they please. So you give them a prompt and they will give you how they feel that the image would be. So as tarot imagery is supposed to be super precise, it's really hard to make the AI do something that is not going all over the place. So in my experience, it doesn't work. But if you do not try to make specifically a tarot, but if you try to work with the images that it will give you, I think there is something really interesting that you can do, because as the AI will do her thing, it will give very interesting and original ideas. For instance, I wanted one to make a world card once, and it kept making the woman be in the crown, like inside a nest, because it thought it was a nest. So here is the world. And it insisted on the crown being a nest. And I thought it was a really interesting idea.
Yeah, it is.
So it made me see the card differently. Like Raymond talked about the 9 of coins in a way that will make me see it differently from now on. So I think this is an interesting thing to do with them.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, I've dabbled a little bit with the AI images, and sometimes I kind of do get what I'm looking for, but not really. It doesn't really hit the nail on the head, It's like almost there. And I was wondering if with tarot images that could be applied. But then again, you also find it very difficult.
Yeah, I think those kind of tools are just tools. Like Photoshop is a tool, and it's very difficult to master Photoshop. And if you are not a digital artist with capacity for modifying the image afterwards, it won't do. So we cannot ask the AI to like make a tarot card for us. It's too hard. But I think a good artist would be able to use it like you use Photoshop, or you use a brush or something to make up his own tarot card. But that wouldn't be AI art. That would be regular art.
Right. Oh,
And
we have
Mary
a poem. Yes, Mary, go ahead.
Let me unmute first. Hi.
Hi.
Before I read this, it's just a little poem, but before I read this little poem, what you just said reminded me so much of this is, well, anything would fit in this conversation, I guess, but it reminds me a lot of the way that traditional, particularly Navajo medicine keepers treat their objects. That there is a museum in New Mexico called the Wheelwright Museum, and medicine men and women bring their medicine bundles to this museum. And it's basically like a lending library. And so the curators of this museum have had to say that when they're called jish, when an object leaves, it may not come back the way that it left, that it will come back changed. Things will be taken out of it, new things will be put into it. And I was thinking about your comments about digital art and AI in terms of, everything changes. So this openness to this image that has been around for a long time, its meanings, I'm speaking personally, those meanings change. They're open for alteration. They're revolutionized. They become rebellious where they weren't before. They change in power dynamics. So I think this is really a potentially incredibly exciting and fascinating idea that you can have this interface with a medium that creates knowledge in a different way. If you're open to allowing it to do that. So, and I know that feminist decks have done this, just changing the shape of a card from square to round. Then what happens is you change, so now you don't have a reversal, you have a spiral happening. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to say about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this. So I have a little poem about the Nine of Pentacles, and because that card for me is always, I've been reading cards for a long time, but that card for me and Pentacles in general, or for me, have always been signifiers of resources and what one does with their external and their internal resources. So to have an abundance of resources is really, what do you do with that? What do you do with that wealth? And so this is a love poem. All winter you kept trying to sprout salad greens and reed plath. Each of us our grandmother's namesakes. Already we tag after each other like kite tails of velvet and wiped kerosene rags. I want to give to you, but only what you alone can see. Something common, like a salt shaker, that anybody can use. Put it on top of your stove, where its beauty will surprise only you.
Oh. Yeah, that's such a lovely take too.
Beautiful.
To use concrete, normal things as a conveyor of love. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for this.
And I love the images that came out of the image itself, of the prompt. It's lovely. Thanks, Mary.
Oh, thank you.
And who else would like to give it a shot? Can't see anyone on the screens. Nobody's got a poem for us today.
A poem or a story or a feeling, a fleeting idea. Anything goes.
There?
Yes, Rula. I don't have a poem. I do have, some thoughts about the two images, but not a poem.
All right.
That's great.
You're welcome to share them if you like.
Okay, I'll try because they're not organized. What I saw in these two is the new generation and the old generation, and how children are unaware of their parents' and grandparents' struggle. And so oftentimes they are enjoying comfort, yet still dreaming of getting more, and oftentimes complaining. In this case, it is idleness that I see with the young girl who's dreaming, but young children, not young children, even much older children, tend to be very self-centered and don't realize and don't want to even hear what their parents went through. And those were the thoughts that came to me aside from all the other prompts, that the images give. But that was the main thought that it triggered. The juxtaposition of the images triggered, but I couldn't write a poem about that.
It's funny because the story I had about the cards was almost the same.
Oh, unbelievable.
I saw a young person who was enjoying a very comfortable life, like I do, because here I have a nice computer with a cool screen and everything made from precious metals and stuff. And there is so much work behind all this. Everything I own has been made by people who work, sometimes like slaves. And this made me very uncomfortable.
Another thought came to my mind because I come from the Middle East and was born in Egypt. Some of the greatest fortunes of the Lebanese immigrants were made by people who were peddlers, and they went from door to door to sell fabrics. And when I grew up and I heard the big names that owned, some of them, people who owned the big department stores, like Le Printemps and all of that. And then their father or his father did that, and I just couldn't believe it. And then I heard also from friends that the Zara, the store, the department store in Spain, Zara, I heard that he himself, if I didn't misunderstand, he himself or his father, that's what he did. He carried merchandise and went door to door. So anyway, it made me feel how the new generation is very, in my own experience, it triggered my own inner thoughts that they are really unaware of all the struggles that their parents went through.
We can sum it up as comfort forgets struggles.
That's very powerful.
Thank you.
Can I add to that as well? And what the other comments, that I saw the kind of pentacles as being the resources that the ones had cultivated into these sticks, because they still have little leaves on the end. They're still living but they have been fashioned for another purpose. And the falcon is also, I think, a symbol of intuition, which I think the wands are too. So something about the, you know, gathering resources, they're stockpiled here in preparation for some sort of transformative work that can feel like a burden, but it's still alive. It's something along those lines. I was trying to tie in what everybody else was saying.
It's a great detail to note. You're still alive.
I have a little poem too. Just the thing that really struck me was the lack of vision in both cards. Because in the 10 he's blocked, or the carrier. Blinded, hooded, closed, strive or ease. It's a choice to see.
Yeah, it is.
This is what it's all about, right? The whole process.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the bird is hooded, so no choice, but the two humans, yeah.
Yeah, the woman is looking down.
She is, and I was seeing it as closed, not looking down, but I was only looking on the screen, so.
But yeah, seeing it the choice. That's great.
Lovely. There's something in the chat here. Oh, we have a poem by Lotta Pika. Lotta, okay, yes, we can read the poem by Gibran. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so is he for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your, let me just enlarge it here. Sorry, I lost it. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Like sheaves of corn, he gathers you unto himself. He threshes you to make you naked. He sifts you to free you from your husks. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing this link that you made.
And little heart. Thank you. And I don't know the poem Hay for the Horses.
It's a short poem, which I could read if you wanted to hear it.
Yes,
but
I'd like to.
It speaks to the burden of carrying that potential for a long time. Hay for the Horses. This is Gary Snyder, and this is a really old poem, like from the maybe 60s. No, 58.
All right.
Okay. He was one of the beat poets. Hay for the Horses. He had driven half the night from far down San Joaquin, through Mariposa, up the dangerous mountain roads, and pulled in at 8 a.m. with his big truckload of hay behind the barn. With winch and ropes and hooks, we stacked the bales up clean to splintery redwood rafters high in the dark, flecks of alfalfa whirling through single cracks of light, itch of hay dust in the sweaty shirt and shoes. At lunchtime, under black oak, out in the hot corral, the old mare nosing lunch pails, grasshoppers crackling in the weeds. I'm 68, he said. I first bucked hay when I was 17. I thought that day that I started, I sure would hate to do this all my life. And damn it, that's just what I've gone and done.
Yeah.
Wow. Again, thanks for the beautiful link here, Mary.
And you see how
there's a lot. Memory, also remembering poems, is also one form of inspiration, even if the poem isn't really coming from you, but that's what the cards do, I guess. You make links.
Well, she's been given it to us, and for those of us who didn't know it, then it adds again, more depth to this card. So the card is nothing but generates so many beautiful ideas. It's great.
Absolutely. I guess we can take one more poem if there's anybody who would like to take the last slot. Anyone here? No. Okay. Well, I guess we all agree that this has been one fascinating session, and we would like to give a huge clap to Emmanuelle for demystifying and clarifying and doing lots of explanations and breaking so many cliches that surround the cards, the tarot cards. Thank you for the inspiration, Emmanuelle, and the info. And we're so happy to have you with us today. We feel so lucky to have had this chance to speak to you and to ask you all kinds of questions and to be inspired by the cards that you showed us and by your presence in general. So thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm honored to be here. I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And we're looking forward to having you again at some point with any of our next upcoming Psychreatives Indelible Evenings when your next book is coming out. We also have, as you all know, we have a lot of workshops, and there are some conferences also coming up with the LABRC, which is now the umbrella under which Psychreative and Indelible are operating. So basically, the LABRC, or the London Arts-Based Research Centre, is Indelible and Psychreative, and plus workshops and courses and conferences that will be given on so many topics that surround creativity, Jung and beyond. So it's just, there's so much to learn from creativity, and we would like to give it a center. We would like to give it a platform. So we thought, let's merge everything there, and let's include everybody in it and hear what everyone has to give. So thank you so much. It was a great pleasure and a great honor. Sarah, thank you also for being such a wonderful co-host with me. It's so lovely to see everybody again. And hopefully our next session will be in February. So there might be a slight delay. It was supposed to be sometime in early Feb, but I think it's going to be now during late Feb. And please follow us and stay in the loop so that you could hear about our updates and the next coming events and all that. So have a great day or a great evening, and happy inspiration, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.